When you do the fan war run sequence at the end of Beacon 2, there's a bunch of guys at the end that have banter dialogue congratulating you for how epic you are. However, what a lot of people don't know is that the set of lines they have will change depending on how many times you die trying to get across.
Went down there and got us an arc tool. We're still in business.
You, sir, one hell of a pilot. Some amazing moves, sir.
He's got the arc tool. Well, that's impressive.
They must be stepping up their pilot training. I gotta work out more if I'm gonna keep up.
I can't imagine what you just went through down there. Great work, pilot.
Looks like you've been to hell and back. Glad you made it, pilot.
You made it all the way around and found an arc. If I had a medal, I'd give it to you. Well done, sir.
Speaking of these same grunts, they have some lines of dialogue that are technically played when you die in the fans, but you can never actually hear any of them because the death warp sound overrides them. Here's what they would have sounded like if they worked as intended.
Pilot now! Watch out, no! Sir, no!
With the right movement, you can go above the ceiling geometry in the second BT ship section and see its untextured side. Sometimes in the campaign, if you take too long to do something it deems time critical, the game can just fade out and revert you to checkpoint. I'm sure we've all seen this at some point, but here are some instances of it that you might not realise exists.
BT, what's the plan?
I cannot reach the Ark. Cooper, I need your help. Reactor core may be able to destabilize the Ark at the center of the full weapon.
What are you saying?
We can blow it up. I'm sending you coordinates for a dropship rendezvous.
Coordinates received. We'll be there, but I don't see how you can.
Trust me, I have done the math.
I sure as hell hope so. We're on our way.
The Wingman's firing sound doesn't work during the Viper tackle sequence. The 1v1 Coliseum maps each have two spots that are specifically designated as Titan spawn locations, despite the fact you can never drop Titans on these maps normally, and this can only be seen by hacking. I find it interesting that they're both marked with these little squares on either side, as if it's supposed to be one Titan for each player in a 1v1. Although we don't currently have a way of doing this glitch without hacks, if you did some kind of clip, it theoretically would work. If you return to the BT torturing room any time after hacking the door open, you'll be able to walk up to the destroyed BT chassis, and the game just lets you embark him, even though he doesn't even have a data core at this point. If you take this other BT to the part where you call down the new chassis, he just explodes and briefly turns into a ghost. This is technically something that happens normally, but without this glitch, there's just no way of observing it. An even funnier glitch derived from this is that if you embark the destroyed BT quickly enough, and do it before your jump kit charges up, after a brief time, BT will just disappear and you'll shrink into a pilot, while keeping all of the weapons and abilities from when you were a Titan. I'm pretty sure this happens because when your jump kit finishes charging up here, the game just sets your player class to be a regular pilot, and this is just what that looks like if it happens while you're embarked. Going to the Titan calling in section again, embarking BT in any way will cause you to just instantly die. This also includes when the start of the Sloan fight forces you in BT. A final funny thing here is that the data core prompt also gives you a smart pistol, which means you can use Titan abilities like the gun shield with it, and as you can probably imagine, this also lets you crash the game in various ways. Using a high host timescale value in this game can often mess with certain sound effects and make them play with incorrect timings. If you do this and use a really high timescale during the very start of the game, and then avoid looking at either of the calibration lights, you'll hear this really weird portion of ambient sound that you don't usually hear, that sounds like some kind of live recording.
We have to calibrate the pod, Rifleman.
There is a devotion pickup right next to you at the start of Abyss 2 that claims to have a scope on it, according to this icon, but when you pick it up, it just doesn't. This devotion also has way less ADS zoom than normal. The exact same thing also happens with this devotion pickup in the level before. This happens because the devotion does internally have a hollow sight modifier, but it's incomplete and doesn't add to the actual sight for whatever reason. And I'm guessing that modification was just erroneously applied to these devotions despite not being finished. The end of this Affecting Cause 3 cutscene allows you to move around for a brief moment after it ends. The funniest way to utilize this brief moment is to jump straight back off this edge and kill yourself while the game is switching levels. After doing this and loading into the level after, you'll see that you've been given the wrong weapons. The game is supposed to carry over the weapons you previously had, but because we died during the level transition, it just gives you whatever the level's default loadout is. In this case, the Hemlock and MGL are the guns you would have if you loaded into this level from Mission Select. If you look at a Titan in the past so that you can see their little health bar, swap to the present and immediately look straight up, you can briefly see their health bar just chilling in the sky. The same is true for if you look at one in the present and then swap to the past and then look straight down. This is just another one of the janky side effects of these timelines being two maps stacked on top of each other. There are two leftover testing models that still secretly reside on the Ark's third gun platform. They're both invisible, but code does exist to have them show again via bug repronom, although it's impossible to recreate those anymore, so you just have to force them to appear.
I've got no hostiles in sight. Cooper, stand by. The 6-4 are coming aboard.
Launching zip
There are
line.
still anti-air cannons active on the deck of the Malta. They must be disabled from the bridge before we can approach.
These were evidently used as a reference model for the zipline deployments in some way. They also make that weird shuffling sound. Kind of similarly, the fold weapon has a number of floating fake guy spawners throughout the map. Their related code to actually spawn in the guys is normally disabled, and even if it wasn't, the grunts would have been hidden. But if you bring it back and unhide them, they just spawn in these floating militia guys as soon as the map loads. I have no idea why. During the town climb section of Abyss 2, for some reason you're not quite allowed to look all the way up or down. The game specifically puts this restriction on you once the platform you ride on gets put in place, and it only ends once the final platform during the dome assembly stops moving. For a long time I had no idea what was up with this, but after commenting out the line that does it and playing it for myself, I think the most likely explanation is that this is to stop people from getting their perspective confused against the sideways town, in a kind of subtle way. It's hard to get it across on video, but when you're playing, it does feel a lot harder to get confused when you hit the looking up limit a bit earlier. In the short window of time in between when the arc starts overloading and when it teleports you to the frozen section, if you either embark BT during it or have him die right before triggering it, the game crashes. During the Fold intro cutscene, in addition to BT's legs and minigun doing funny things underneath this floor, which I've already talked about before, I didn't realise there's also a Spitfire stored down there. It's a lot easier to see if you turn on full bright. The big Draconis ship is secretly put right inside the skybox at the start of the arc. It's just unseeable normally because it gets previously hidden for cube map building purposes.
This is Commander Briggs. We have to recover the Ark. The IMC are taking it to the Fold weapon on board the Draconis. All ships, flank speed. We have to catch the Draconis. I got an unidentified bogey at 11 o'clock. What the hell is that?
Just for a bit of background on this next set of facts, when I'm talking about start points, I'm talking about these options in the dev menu that let you load into various places in the game. Most of them can have quirky things happen when you load in that are not accurate to the actual level. If you load into any Fold weapon start point that happens after the Smart Pistol run, backtracking and going back through the starting door will reveal that all of the fire in the room is gone, the destroyed BT chassis is nowhere to be seen, and in its place is just a T-posing, non-destroyed BT model. Both of the Abyss 2 start points that take place in the platform ride before the dome put you on slightly weird platforms. If you load into Assembly Highway, the platform it spawns you on will be rotated the wrong way down, and you basically die if you try to move at all. After a few seconds, the platform corrects itself though. This is because it uses a different platform creation function that was made specifically for this start point, in order to not have to deal with any annoyingness with the assembly line. Loading into the start point right after this puts you on a type of platform where the crane arm that's holding you doesn't have any collision, where ordinarily it would, mildly inconveniencing speedrunners in the process. Loading into pretty much any start point that puts you midway through an area will usually allow you to backtrack into triggers and basically refight some of the enemy spawns. If you load into the OLA launch in Trial by Fire, Sarah will not be with you, and instead you'll just find her stranded way back at the start of the level. This is especially strange because her being with you at this point is this level's whole thing. You also need to backtrack a bit to have any of the other Titans be there. It's kind of just a lonely start point compared to how it's supposed to be in the level. If you load into the Assembly Wall Run start point in Abyss 2, it puts you right at the end of the first assembly line cycle, but it starts that cycle all the way back at the start of the level, so you kind of just sit there in awkward silence for a few minutes until the platforms catch up with you. This is basically the same problem they had with the highway start point, but they just didn't do anything to fix it in this one for whatever reason. Since this is the first platform cycle we're talking about, once it does catch up, you'll also see that it spawns these two cranes inside other cranes. If you load into Wall Run panels in Beacon 3, the crane dish will look as if you've never been there, and you can retake the module from it. If you load into either of the two arc start points that happen inside the stabby control-y room, This anti-backtrack wall thingy will already be here at a point that it isn't supposed to be, but it's only textured on one side and you can just walk straight through it. And finally, if you load into any fold start point from after the Titan Hill, you'll get given the wrong kind of smart pistol. The game gives you one that does more damage, is able to shoot while sprinting, and has infinite ammo. Whereas in the actual level, your smart pistol normally gets nerfed here to have limited ammo, loses its shoot while sprinting privileges, and is no longer able to one-shot these grunts. It also reloads a lot more quickly than it should. That's the end of that fact now, by the way. In this section, Sarah's ship is normally scripted to wait indefinitely to do anything, as long as you're inside it, because it has the helmet inside. However, by doing some semi-precise movement and re-entering quickly enough after jumping out, you can stay inside it during the cutscene. This softlocks the level and also lets you see Sarah as she gets deleted. There are multiple places in the game where you can look at frozen people for as long as you want to, as long as you're just slightly hesitant to progress.
Move your ass, Davis. We got the drop on them. Let's go, pilot. We have no other options. We need to catch that ship. They're getting away!
The Dome Arena has two holes in its walls that speedrunners use to do one of the biggest skips of the whole game. This is very widely known at this point, however what I didn't realise until recently is that this area used to be even more broken than it already is. In this function that sets up the climb, we can see that the devs were aware of the collision issues and did make an attempted fix for it. This code creates invisible sky panels that block you out of a lot of other out-of-bounds spots, in addition to the ones we already knew about. We can unhide these sky panels to see where these spots are, and if we disable the whole thing, we can see what it looked like pre-fixing. This spot doesn't even require crouching to clip through. The only reason this glitch still works is because Respawn just missed these two spots, thank Jod. While we're on the same topic, if you stand in this exact spot before the dome blacks out, once it fades back in, you'll get put on the wrong side of the wall. This is how people used to skip this fight before the out of bounds version was found. Sitting way outside the map in Blood and Rust is a mini fleet of ship models taken directly from the Ark that would have been part of an unused skybox element. Respawn knew that disembarking in this hallway can break a lot of things, and so normally you aren't allowed to disembark anywhere in it until you get towards the end. However, you can get around this restriction if you just hover before doing it.
Controls transferred to pilot.
personnel. This is General Mardo. The mercenaries have delivered the arms. Prep the fold weapon.
Initiating preliminary fold powering up targeting responders.
Set location to the militia planet Harmony.
Initiating targeting systems. Harmony. Coordinates 264.588 recorded.
In this cutscene near the start of the game, the way Lastimosa drops out of BT's cockpit suggests he was in there upside down, retroactively making this Prowler kill a lot more impressive. I'm guessing Respawn thought this looked better and just hoped people wouldn't think about it too much, which to be fair I didn't for several years until Big Emster pointed it out to me in the comments. The highway area in Abyss 2 has some misplaced geometry. Shooting one of these dragon bird thingies with tone will play a sound effect that makes it sound like you got a missile lock on them. While coming out of the cutscene that first gives you the timeswap ability, using it as soon as you possibly can afterwards will result in a slightly funny visual effect. In order to stop you from just running ahead in the fold weapon without doing any of the BT stuff, the game will start slowly killing you anytime that you're in this very general area. This seems like a really weird solution to me, but fair enough. There was a pretty big oversight left in this though, because the damage just stops working as long as you aren't moving. By just periodically stopping to regenerate health, you can still fully ignore BT, and while it doesn't let you progress, you can still pre-trigger everything and just break the entire level if you wanted to. If you remember the glitch Sloan cutscene from the last video, this is actually a very easy way of getting that without having to do anything too silly. The damage you take each time also does actually scale with difficulty. On harder difficulties, you'll have to stop more often to not die. This takes a lot of timing to pull off, but if either you or an enemy NPC uses Salvo core at the exact same moment that the core is lowering a flame shield, it can sometimes cause the entire Salvo core to just get deleted. This can work both ways. Normally when you kill Richter without executing him, he goes through this whole nuke self-destruct thing, and the doors to the hub room will open a short delay after he finishes doing that. However, for some reason, if the thing that lands the final bit of damage happens to be one of these really shite turrets, this whole thing will just get skipped, and the game will basically act like you just killed a regular Titan. This would be helpful for speedrunners, but getting it to happen in a timely fashion is kind of impossible. If you manage to hit someone with sword core while also breaking open a battery casing in the same swipe, it will cause the attack to do more damage. Unfortunately, this is way less applicable than it sounds because it's very hard to have both the battery and enemy be in melee range without also having something else break the battery. It's a very delicate art. If you back up Richter into the hub room doors, usually with something like a flame trap to force him to move away from it, and then stagger him into it in the right way, You can sometimes get him to go inside the hub room. This isn't quite a softlock, but it's a bit of a hard situation to get out of unless you know how to do this clip. Certain surfaces in the game, normally ones that are able to move, will not allow certain throwables to interact with them. The funniest example of this is softball shots, where by using one of these types of surfaces you can delay them from exploding infinitely. If you go even a little bit fast through the end of Effect and Cause 1, you can briefly see the end of the map where it would just drop you out of bounds. Similarly, you can see outside the map if you stand on top of the sky bridge on Complex. As well as this, you can see outside the map in this spot in Effect and Cause 2, where you can get an early look inside the button door control-y room. It's right next to the spot that also has the broken T-posing scientist, which I think is quite funny. They also missed a spot at the back of the little lower down section of the Malta's second floor, although to be fair it's quite difficult to find. While we're here, this place is broken in a couple more ways as well. The guy sitting on this bench will eventually just disappear if you wait here for long enough. And once you go around the corner to where the T-posing guys start getting used, they disappear a bit too early, and you can see them doing it if you're looking at them closely. Only in one specific region of the dome walls, the sky panels have these small gaps in between them that let you see outside the map. On Dry Dock, there's an out of bounds hole that is quite interesting because it lets you see the leftover development model underneath the map in a live match, without having to use cheats. This area of trial by fire with a kill timer surrounding it has some very crude geometry that you can still see if you're fast enough. I couldn't get footage of it for the life of me, but there is a multiplayer loading screen hint that refers to Ion's laser tripwires as arc traps. Arc traps are a thing in Frontier Defense, but they're completely unrelated to laser tripwires or Ion, so I'm pretty sure this hint is just wrong. If BT is not in the correct position to start either the Beacon 1 or Beacon 3 ending cutscene at the moment the elevator finishes going up, he will just get teleported. You can get this to happen without doing anything too crazy, because this little spot in the corner of the elevator is apparently sometimes deemed as not in the correct position. In Beacon 1 specifically, there is also a window where you also get shoved back inside the room alongside the BT teleport, but for some reason this will only work if you're crouching as it happens. Cooper is clearly doing an okay hand in this beacon loading screen. Falling down this big cavern at the end of Abyss 1 will not kill you as long as you press the elevator button before doing it. Some of these walls start lowering down after the turrets get destroyed to let you into the wave fight. However, the particular walls that do this will actually always let you through, even if they haven't been destroyed yet. You can quite easily softlock the game after the Viper fight by disembarking anywhere in the air along the sides of the ship. This gets BT stuck, and in this sequence your ability to embark and move him gets taken away as soon as you first disembark, so wherever you put him is where he's gonna basically be forever. I've also managed to have this happen on the ground a few times. Also, if you hold down your interact key at any time in this sequence, you'll cause BT to vibrate. It also does the thing where your shoot button causes the red wire to stick out. One of the more actually kind of glaring issues in the game is this interaction with the dish module. If you are simply crouching at the time you interact with it, you will be put very slightly in the floor afterwards. This doesn't cause any issues on its own, but if you then load the checkpoint that you get given here, it will clip you further down and inside the dish, and as soon as it starts moving you instantly die, forcing you to load the checkpoint again and basically getting you stuck in an infinite death loop. This is one of the very few true, save file breaking softlocks that this game actually has, and it's really easy to do. For these next few, I'll go over some Easter eggs that I skipped over last time because I thought they were too widely known, but who cares. The time travel device has an alternate funny animation that has a 1 in 2000 chance of playing whenever you use it. If you stand right outside this security room door and timeswap 88 times, it'll eventually open and reveal a fella hitting the Yoinky Sploinky. This is meant to be a reference to this scene from the movie Time Cop where someone does the same funny split thing, I don't fucking know. This Easter egg actually has a bit of protection because you don't see the fella if you just no-clip into the room. You have to go through all 88 time swaps to get him to appear, although the same cannot be said for the guy on the floor. There are 36 different rare eject messages that you can sometimes get instead of the usual one. Most of them are also various movie references. Here are some of the funnier / lesser known examples of Nessie plushes that can be found in a good chunk of levels.
Until I am mobile, I will assist you through your helmet radio when possible.
The Arc Nessie also has its own thing going on with it, but I talked about that in the last video. Collecting these 3 bottle thingies in Blood and Rust will activate a secret teleport trigger inside one of the pits of sludge that takes you into a funny room when you drop into it.
I just hope you're better than the last one I killed.
Pilot, our paths will intersect just up ahead. Pilot, our path through this facility is blocked by a flow regulation gate. There should be a control interface nearby.
In between the first couple of time swaps that happen in the game, the crowbar next to this hazmat suit in the corner will disappear. It was confirmed a while ago that this is supposed to be a Half-Life reference. This is probably something that everyone already knew about except me, because I never go through here as a Titan. But all of the legions in this room have a script running on them, where if you destroy a past legion, one of the legions in the present just gets instantly deleted. This also still works with the deactivated rack Titans. There are a few more things we can add onto the list of times when Respawn lied and faked something to achieve a desired effect. The Jefferson-Boyle set of audio logs throughout Effect and Cause will always act like you found them in chronological order, even if you didn't. For example, if you missed every single Jefferson-Boyle audio log in the level except the third to last one, missed the second to last one, and then found the very last one, the game will just act like the two logs you found were logs number 1 and 2, even though they weren't.
Dr. Jefferson Boyle, log 1. Dr. Jefferson Boyle, log 2. I found myself a standard IMC survival kit.
This becomes funnier when you realise you backtracked to the same map from Chapter 1 in Chapter 3. Any audio logs you did find in Chapter 1 will be handled correctly, but any of them that you didn't already find will basically make no sense being there.
Dr. Jefferson Boyle, log 1. Looks like they went. Dr. Jefferson Boyle, log 5. Dr. Jefferson Boyle, signing off. Over and out. Is that how you say it? Whatever. Bye.
In many cases throughout the game, when you interact with something as part of some kind of sequence, you're actually secretly interacting with one of these things. They do normally get removed as soon as you interact with them, but I've disabled that to show them off better. Also in Effect and Cause, Respawn couldn't actually fit this long vent drop in the level without spilling over into the other timeline. So there are two separate vent things, technically 4 if you count both timelines, and once you get partway through the vent, the game just teleports you to the alternate vent. This is why missing triggers here softlocks you in the funny way that it does, since you just never get teleported out of the illusion vent. The same kind of thing is also true for this elevator in the Ark, where they basically did the same thing, but this time it was because the elevator was too short. The ticks that get sent out by these dropships during the Sludge fight are not actually being spawned by anything special. To get this effect to work, Respawn actually just put dummy Reapers on the bottom of the ships, and have them shoot out the ticks themselves because they already just have the ability to do that set up. These Reapers are just made invisible and invincible normally. One of the sets of grunts that you can see in the Beacon 3 ending cutscene run off to the left out of your view in a very committed fashion, despite the fact there is absolutely nothing here except an edge. These grunts are never seen again. In the same cutscene, the guy who emerges from this building at the end will just disappear right in front of you if you look closely. A final and probably the funniest mistake with the grunts here is that if you're on a high enough FOV, the guy who gives Sarah the tablet at the end can be seen at the start of the cutscene just chilling frozen off to the right in a reference pose. I mentioned most of the random out-of-bounds stuff in Affecting Cause 1 and 3 in the last video, but I missed this door that just sits next to the entrance and is found on both timelines, but it doesn't do anything. This beam thingy in the Malta hangar fight has some Z fighting issues. This might be another one that everyone else already knew except me, but this wall that you run on at the very end of the game is supposed to be the same wall that you've already previously run on earlier in that level. One of the teleport respawn points that you can get sent to if you fall down towards the end of the gauntlet is bugged and sticks you inside the floor slightly. A side effect of this is that jumping and frag pull sounds are broken for some reason.
Planet's trying to be a hero. He's got to be headed your way.
Understood. Ash out.
You can slightly see over the top of this door. Climbing back up the hole in the ceiling after having touched the floor but before the scripted timeswap happens will softlock you out of bounds. If you try to send a null chat message in multiplayer, which you can do if you just send the chat command and nothing else, or an empty quote, you'll be told about 15 minutes later after the match has ended that your chat message can't be empty. There's no way of replicating this error with just the regular chat box, so this is a pretty rare message to see. If you quit to main menu while a single player level is fading out, and then launch multiplayer, it will cause the multiplayer menu to have a single player load screen. The 3D skybox that sits way outside the map in Abyss 2 emits a sound. I don't think there is any out of bounds that would let you hear this without hacks, but the Abyss 2 crew might have something to say about that, I don't know. I need to touch grass.